Daily Cyber Briefing for Wednesday, the 5th of April. I'm Stephen Ridgway. There is a vulnerability in around 50 models of HP Enterprise LaserJet and HP LaserJet managed printers. The vulnerability being tracked as CVE 2023 1707 and gets a CVSS score of 9.1 out of 10. Basically, notes stating there that exploitation could result in information disclosure. Despite the high score, HP have announced that there won't be a patch for this for around 90 days. So that's somewhat worrying. They recommend that if you are using these models, you should downgrade the version of FutureSmart that runs on those devices. There are, let me see. So the mitigation is to downgrade the FutureSmart 5.6 firmware to FutureSmart 5.5.0.3. They are arguing that the potential risk is low because of the way that the exploit would have to be carried out. However, if it's got a high CVSS score, it certainly was something worth looking into. So we'll post a link to a good article from Bleeping Computer that sets out what's going on. Check to see if you've got any of these HP affected HP LaserJet Enterprise devices. Especially, I guess, if you are printing confidential stuff from them, it is worth having a look to see whether implementing the mitigations would be the right thing for you guys to do. I suspect it is something that ought to be taken seriously, but probably something not to absolutely panic about. I think it's just a little bit disappointing that they think it's going to take. I mean, can you imagine how much code can be assessed in 3 months worth of work? Suspect it's not being prioritized. But there we go. HP LaserJet vulnerabilities will get patched at some point. There is a new piece of malware, which is a new crypto stealer that has hit Chromium-based browsers. It is interesting as to how you pronounce it, but Rilide, R-I-L-I-D-E, Rilide, I think. Although it's also appears to be in the same article written as Riligy, R-I-L-I-G-Y. So either way, it is a piece of malware which is disguised as legitimate Google Drive extension, allows attackers to capture screenshots, monitor the user's browsing history, inject malicious scripts to steal funds from cryptocurrency wallets. So definitely one to look out for. And just so that you are aware, this affects Chromium-based browsers. Chromium-based browsers include all sorts of things that are not just Chromium. So yes, be aware of that. I'm just trying to remember what things are Chromium-based, but I think Edge is Chromium-based. Microsoft Edge, Google Chrome, Opera are common Chromium-based. Chromium itself, one would guess. So so watch out for that one. There's a good article in HackRead, which will link to this, that it demonstrates how this particular piece of malware gets gets installed into your browser. There are some unknown vectors in this, but it does look like Excel macros is one particular method. However, Google Ads, phishing websites, and subsequent installation of stealers of one form or another are part of this particular piece of malware's mode of operation. So have a read, have a look at that, and again, as always, do your best to make sure that you are only installing legitimate extensions into your browser if you get the opportunity to, and I would say do check every now and then to make sure that stuff hasn't crept in whilst you weren't looking. Okay, more information around malware. There is, as described by Dark Reading, mysterious, raw. How do you pronounce it? You know those pictures of splodges that you get that are, you say, what can I see? Oh, I can see a butterfly, or I can see a face, or whatever it might be in them. Psychology test, Rorschach, I think, ransomware. It is the one to look out for at the moment. It can encrypt at something approaching twice the speed of other common ransomware such as Lockbit 3. Excuse me. It is therefore something which is worth watching out for. So one of the opportunities that you get if you have got good visibility across your estate is that if you do get ransomware into the estate, there is a period of time whilst devices are being encrypted where you might be able to identify that something has happened. Now, the incident response lifecycle, or at least the bit in the middle of the incident response lifecycle, detects, contain, eradicate, recover. If you can detect, you can build containment plans. If you can't detect, you don't know what you're trying to contain. So that piece of the incident response process is quite linear in that respect. If you have the opportunity to contain whilst devices are being encrypted, firstly, you may possibly save a certain amount of data off the devices, and secondly, it gives you that heads up that you need to do something to protect other devices in the vicinity of the ones that have been hit, or potentially isolate network segments. Loads of things you can do to try and contain and minimize the damage there. However, obviously, the faster your ransomware can encrypt and move on, the less likely you are to be able to detect it in time, or if you do detect it, to be able to contain it in time. So certainly something to bear in mind. There is a lot of effort going into writing really, pushing the boundaries, writing really good malware in that sense. So according to this article, Rorschach raises the bar for ransomware attacks. So it is fastest and most sophisticated ransomware seen so far. I mean, the other thing to think about when considering what to do about ransomware is, to a large extent, once the attackers have got a foothold into your systems, you can't really trust anything that's in there anyway. So if you've got good offline backups one way or another, if you're keeping your disaster recovery plans and your business continuity plans up to date and tested, ransomware just then becomes ransomware. It's if it's in there, you've got to assume that your data has been exfiltrated, or at least a large part of whatever it is that they've seen will have gone. The devices themselves, even if you get you pay for the ransomware keys, the encryption keys, you really shouldn't be trusting those devices anyway. So if you have got data on a particular device which is absolutely vital to the functioning of your business, well, firstly, it should have been backed up anyway. It shouldn't just be sat on a server or sat on. There should be other copies of this stuff elsewhere. But if you really have to, I suppose you could say, well, paying the ransom allows you to get this data back, but it's got to be pretty rare occurrences when that actually matters. The most common approach these days seems to be, and I think I would agree with this, accept the fact that it's all gone to pot. Try to understand how you got compromised and rebuild, having put in place some mitigations to those initial, that initial vector of compromise. So, if you're not good at patching, well, when you rebuild, build patched, and keep on top of it, that sort of stuff. So, so watch out for this particular piece of ransomware. It is out there, but again, make sure that your ransomware playbook is not based around relying on being able to recover stuff off devices that have been hit. And then just a couple of other in fact, one other topic, a couple of other sites that I'd like to sort of bring to your attention. Talking of patching and avoiding getting ransomware in the first place, it is very difficult to know what to patch if you're working in an environment where you don't have a culture of patch and be damned, which actually, by the way, is often much less painful than you would think. However, that's a discussion for another time. There are the go-to list of things to watch out for is the CISA known exploited vulnerabilities catalog, and we'll post a link to that at the end of this briefing. It's really good. It does tell you, what is out there. We've spoken about it, I think even earlier this week, but it is a very good list of things which are currently being targeted. So if you are uncertain what to patch, making sure you're patched against all of those particular vulnerabilities, I think would be a really good thing. But I came across something else which I think is a potentially useful tool. I don't normally, we don't normally, we certainly don't endorse any particular vendors or whatever's tooling, you name it. It is what it is. It may work for you, it may not. However, Tripwire have published some good information around the priority patch lists. So they do a monthly patch list. So the patch list for March is out. So basically, if you are uncertain about the order in which to patch things and what's absolutely, top of the list for right now, have a look at the CISA known exploited list, but also have a look at the Tripwire list. It's a good list. It has picked out, for example, some Microsoft Office Outlook patches, Windows Defender, Edge, Chromium, Office, Excel, some Windows patches, Visual Studio, DNS servers, Hyper-V, Dynamics, SharePoint, and so on and so forth are the things that they're saying right now. This stuff really needs to be taken seriously. So if you're doing nothing else in the way of patching, I would recommend focusing on these things which are known to be exploitable and these things which reputable organizations are saying are the priority for the moment. I've slightly overrun. Hope you don't mind. I'm sure you don't mind. I will call it a day there. So I hope you have a good day and I will speak to you all tomorrow morning.